If you have ever seen content online related to governance, social issues, or security issues in West Africa, chances are you've consumed a fair dose of disinformation. And there's a high probability that you didn't even realize it, because today's disinformation is no longer crude, but it is sophisticated. West Africa is now in the middle of an information war, made worse by multiple coups d'etats, one that organizations such as PenPlusBytes, through its Disinformation Index report, has been trying to shed more light on. This is the final edition of InfoCheck in partnership with PenPlusBytes. And today we examine how West Africa can build a regional response to disinformation, and why building that response remains so difficult. Even the main regional bloc acknowledges that disinformation is a growing trait. Here is Fatau Musah, Ecowas Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security.
There are challenges. The countries you are talking about under military rule, 3 of the 4 are in a zone that has got far more challenges than their democratic challenges. Yeah, you are talking about terrorism. You are talking about the impacts of climate and other. All these impact governance in this region. So this is it. There is a lot of malicious influence also going on in our region. Misinformation, disinformation, fake news, and all that.
That acknowledgement matters because recognizing disinformation as a regional trait is a first step towards addressing it. But of course, not everyone believes that ECOWAS is doing enough or that it even has the capacity to address the issue. One of those voices is that of Dr. Salaudeen Hashim, a regional security expert who questions ECOWAS' effectiveness.
Using the social media that has become one of the biggest space for young people and a lot of people who actively engage in civic environment, has also not seen legitimate government using that, particularly democratic institutions, using that as a medium for communication. So that was a vacuum. That vacuum had actually been exploited, and that exploitation is actually sinking and is being bought by lots of young people within the Sahel. So how do you therefore want to coordinate a battleground that you have also not provided some arsenal to be able to engage with? I think that is, again, one of the biggest setbacks that ECOWAS in itself has done to itself by not providing some level of interested actors or institutions that are also interested in strategically communicating development and then, of course, giving hope to citizens. So this space was left vacuum, and it has been allowed to spread unverified claims and narratives, framing some level of information about how military coup is the best and the alternative that can help to engage further.
For analysts like him, the danger is not just disinformation itself, but the absence of a proactive regional response, allowing foreign actors and coordinated narratives to dominate the information space. For civil society groups, the problem is even more complex. Disinformation through their own lenses is not just a political problem. Here is Maxine Danso, International Expansion Manager at the Center for Journalism Innovation and Development, CJID.
I wouldn't say people are not aware. People are aware that fact checkers are doing the work. But it's just because falsehood also sells. Francis, I'd have you know that people are actually monetizing false information. And so despite the knowledge that, okay, some people are actually very much aware. That's what you call disinformation, because it's an intentional spread of false information. They are very much aware, not that they don't know. They are very much aware that this is false, but they still choose to, spread it because false information is being now monetized. People are making like billions out of false information, and the platforms are actually enabling these things because when you go viral, you get paid.
This means takedowns alone are not enough. And of course, fact-checking alone is not enough. The digital battlefield itself matters. And that of course brings us to the role of tech giants. Platforms say they are not standing aside. TikTok, one of the most widely used social networks in West Africa, says it is working to detect harmful content, including those from foreign sources. Duduzile Nkize, TikTok's Outreach and Partnership Officer for Sub-Saharan Africa.
We actually have dedicated team that look to investigate covert influence. If you go to our transparency page, you will see we actually publish numbers on how much covert influence we disrupted. These are the networks of dedicated disinformation campaigns. And you can understand this is not something that maybe it requires investigation sometimes long term to understand the patterns and what it means, but we have a dedicated team and we publish reports specifically on that issue to say we have dedicated teams, they investigate, and when we disrupt disinformation campaign, covert influence, we actually publish it in our transparency report.
But even platform policies depend on something much deeper: laws, enforcement, and public trust in institutions. Legal experts warn that laws alone are meaningless without enforcement and community action. Dr. Gbam is a lawyer and human rights policy expert.
The black letters of the law have, no matter how beautiful the black letters of the law are, it is irrelevant if the implementation tools are not made enforceable in the community so that the lived realities of people are impacted by some of these laws. The government can make beautiful laws. If there is no willingness by CSOs to also work with government to ensure that the availability of these laws is made known to communities, then it will just become a beautiful paper staying on a shelf somewhere.
The media itself remains a central battleground in the information war in West Africa, but it recognizes the role of CSOs like PenPlusBytes in the fight. Nade Tete is WADR's correspondent in Ghana, one of the key countries featured in PenPlusBytes Disinformation Index report.
What I believe is that media outlets, especially the objective ones, must be empowered. So some of the CSOs with PenPlusBytes, the what they're doing, for instance, this research that they put out, it equally helps and it informs these media outlets with regard to disinformation, the impact it has. Then they can equally pass it on to the audience. But it's very critical that media outlets are empowered to do objective work.
Ecowas itself also concedes that communication gaps exist and says stronger partnerships with media is key to closing that gap, including collaboration with regional broadcasters such as WADR. Once again, Ecowas Commissioner for Political Affairs, Abdel Fatau Musah.
And Ecowas, since about a year now, has actually gone into a review of its communication strategy. Because we feel that we are not reaching out. We are not being heard. Whatever we are doing seems to be insular. Within the commission, our community citizens are not aware of the advantages of belonging to the community. So ECOWAS has done a lot, but ECOWAS has not communicated effectively. Enough, and we are working on it with a lot of media experts, and I think West African Democracy Radio should be part and parcel of this game.
Disinformation in West Africa is not a single actor problem. It sits at the intersection of weak trust, economic incentives, digital platforms, fragile institutions, and unresolved governance challenges. Original response will only work if institutions, the media, civil society organizations, academia, big tech, governments, and citizens act together and not in isolation. As this final edition of InfoCheck, produced in partnership with PenPlusBytes, comes to an end, one thing is clear: in an information war, silence is never neutral. This has been InfoCheck. I remain your host, Francis Boniface. And don't forget, always stay critical.